Okay. Go for it.
Person may bring in his fruit because of thieves and remove his flax from the soaking pond so that it does not become ruined, provided he does not plan his work for Kol Moed. In all these cases, if they plan their work for Kol Moed, it shall be forfeited. We may not purchase homes, nor slaves, nor domestic animals, except for use during the festival, or to provide for the needs of the seller who otherwise has nothing to eat. We may not move objects from one house to another, but we may move objects from one house to another within his courtyard. We may not bring vessels from the artisan's shop, but if one fears for them, he may move them into a different courtyard. We may cover drying figs with straw, and Rabbi Yehuda says we may even stack them. Vendors of fruit, clothing, and utensils may sell their wares in private for use during the festival. Trappers, cereal makers, and bean pounders may ply their trade in private for festival needs, and Rabbi Yossi says they impose a stringency upon themselves.
Okay. All right, so now we move into Perek Gimel. So the following people have special dispensation to shave, take a haircut during Chol HaMoed, which normally we say that you may not. And even though things that are L'Tzorech HaMoed, you could have made a plausible argument for the fact that you should be allowed to take a haircut, take a shave, because you want to feel good for the Moed, right? Chazal made a stringency on this so that people should make sure that they have their haircut and their shave before Chol HaMoed, and that's it. Okay, so the following people may shave during the Chol HaMoed. Habam in Medina Sayam, somebody who comes from overseas. He's been traveling and he hasn't had the opportunity to have a haircut before then. Umibesa Shivya, or somebody who was released from captivity by Yotze Mibesa Asurin, also from jail, same category. Hamanuda Shehitiru Lo Chachamim, somebody who had been in Cherem, and he was released from Cherem. So while he's in Cherem, he's forced to let his hair grow. He's basically an enforced mourner. And once he's released, if he's released during Chol HaMoed, he's allowed to shave. Also, somebody who had a neder on his head. He had taken a neder not to cut his hair, and he asked a shaila and had his neder been matir, and therefore he is also allowed to have his hair cut on Chol HaMoed. The Nazir, also of course a Nazir whose 30-day period comes up during Chol HaMoed. And also a Metzora who has become Tahor now. While he was a Tzora, he was also not allowed to cut his hair. And now that he becomes Tahor, he's allowed to cut his hair. And since this has happened on Chol HaMoed, he has special permission to cut his hair. Similarly, laundry. We also have a gezerah against laundry. Because Chazal didn't want people going down to the river and doing all their laundry during Chol HaMoed, even though they needed for Chol HaMoed. They said make sure that everything is clean. They left a bunch of things out of the gezerah because they know that they are frequently soiled, like children's clothing. They said is permitted, and we'll see what the dispensations are. But in general, the general rule is no laundry during Chol HaMoed, and you have to have a heter why you are allowed to do laundry during Chol HaMoed. So here are the major heterim. Again, somebody who comes from overseas, so all of those categories we mentioned before, the people who come out of captivity. Somebody who had a neder not to do laundry, and he had his neder cancelled. Hold on, what's the difference? Oh, so there was the Menuda, is the one who was in Cherem, who also wasn't allowed to wash his hands, and then there's somebody who had a neder, and the neder was mutar. So all these cloths, so cloths that are used for your hands, which are getting dirty frequently. Okay, the cloths used by the barbers. What do you mean the barbers? The barbers aren't doing haircuts. Yes, they are. They're doing haircuts of the people who mutter to have haircuts. Okay, so they're allowed to wash their towels because they're allowed to apply their trade for people who have a heter to have haircuts.
That's a good question for the kids. It's a good question for the kids. A trick question for them.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids would probably get it though.
Mitpechos hasfag, and the and towels that are used for mopping up messes. Oh, is that right? So swag, yeah. Or towels that you use to dry yourself when you come out of the bathhouse as well. Right. Yeah, that's it. It's basically a bath towel. Since they even though they were already washed erev Yom Tov, you're going to need to wash them again on Chol Hamoed because they get dirty quickly.
Right.
Okay. Hazavin v'hazavos v'anidos v'yoldos. So the zav and the zava and the nida and the yoledis, all these people are all of those who are becoming tahor are so they're allowed to do laundry because their clothing was all tameh. So they need to wash it before they can take it to mikveh. So all the clothing that had been dirtied by them now needs to be washed. Okay, but the general rule is that you're not allowed to wash clothing during Chol Hamoed. Okay.
I thought that underwear clothes you're allowed to launder also.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't mention that at all, though, did he? I didn't see it.
It's not mentioned. It's not mentioned, but yes, that is one of our major heterim. But it probably falls under the gather of towels that are used for drying you up. They're things that get dirty quickly. Basically.
Right.
Okay. Gimel elu kosvin b'moed. Also, you're not supposed to write on Chol Hamoed. It's another malacha, but we have heterim to write certain things. Okay. Kiddushay nashim. You're allowed to write out a star of kiddushin. Right? Remember, a woman can be like our minhag is to do the kiddushin with kesef, with a ring. But there's kesef shtar ubiyah. There are three ways of being the kaddish woman. One is also with a star that says the harei at mekudeshesli on the star. Okay, and he's allowed to do that on Chol Hamoed because there's a possibility of lost opportunity here. Shema yikadmenu acher, because somebody else might jump in and marry her before him. Right. So he's allowed to write out the kiddushin if he wants to do his kiddushin that way. Gitin v'shovarin, also a get. If a man wants to write a get for his wife, he's allowed to do so on Chol Hamoed, because I guess it's also one of these things that grab the opportunity if a man is if it's an unhappy marriage and they want to, and now's her opportunity to get a get, do it. Shovarin, receipts. That's to verify that. For the most common case here is that a woman's received the payout for her kasuba. Is that she writes out a shovar to say that I've received it, thank you. But the shovar is for anything else to prove a transaction, and so that's also allowed. Diatiki. Diatiki is a Greek word which is it's basically a last will and testament. Something that's written by somebody who is dying, and they're giving instructions for how to dispose of their property. That may be done on Chol Hamoed. Matana uprosbolin, a gift, and also a prosbol. Now that is one of the biggest kiddushim you're going to find.
Why?
Because there was I remember there's somebody told the case of this young Talmid Chacham who was trying to prove that prosbol has to be written on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay, we're coming up to the end of this Rosh Hashanah. We're going to be writing prosbolim. So somebody wanted to have this thesis that you need to write a prosbol on Erev Rosh Hashanah for it to be effective. And then somebody pointed out this Mishna to him, and he tore up his work and gave it up. Why? We're talking about Chol Hamoed here.
Right.
Which Chol Hamoed are we talking about if he's writing a prosbol?
This is by Purim. Not Chol Hamoed. I mean by Sukkot.
Sukkot, it's too late.
Yeah, it is too late.
So what Chol Hamoed are we talking about?
Oh, Pesach. I'm sorry. Pesach.
So this Mishnah is talking about it's mutar to write a prosbol on Pesach of the Shemitah year.
It's kind of
I
strange.
mean, obviously, the principle can only be effective for all debts that were incurred before then, but it's nonetheless effective.
So,
So that's literally 6 months before Rosh Hashanah.
okay, I get it.
That's a pretty strong proof from our Mishnah that a principle does not have to be written on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay, Igros Shum Igros Mazon. These are letters of assessment that a Beis Din will write for a lender, that they assess the value of the property of the borrower by so much, and they give, and basically they use it as collateral for his loan, and Igros Mazon and letters of Mazon, which is where the Beis Din writes for selling of property for a woman who needs to sell her husband's property in order to make money or to be able to eat. Okay. Shtari chalitza me'onim, also the documents of doing a chalitza, or if a minor girl who was married midrabanan by her mother and brothers, she was an orphan, right? And she wants to refuse her husband that she's been living in, basically retroactively canceling the marriage. That's also a shtar which can be written on Chol HaMoed. Shtari birurin, if people go to Beis Din and they want to make a shtar that formalizes their agreement on the outcome of the Beis Din. Also, Gezeres Beis Din, the Igros Shel Rishus. Also, any judgment of Beis Din can be written on Chol HaMoed, and letters that are written to the government. All of these fall generally under the category of what's the heter over here in Chol HaMoed. It could be that there's a matter of davar ha'aved, that if you don't do it now, you're going to come out. There's going to be a loss, and therefore we give people the heterium for all of these documents.
They're not saying anywhere here that if you have to write, that you need to write with the shinui. They're not saying anything like that. I thought they would say something like that.
No,
if you're writing, you have to write the left hand.
Nothing about a shinui. Nothing at all about a shinui. It can be written like absolutely normally. Especially if you're talking about a legal document, you probably don't want to write it with a shinui. You might mess up the legal document. Okay. So in general, most of the Mepharshim say that the reason is because it's davar ha'aved. Rambam actually takes a different tack. He says all of these things are a matter of public good. It's a tzorchei harabim. If you go through all of these things, he finds a way that each of them is something that's in the public interest, that this should be permitted. And he says that because it's tzorchei harabim, that's the reason why it's permitted on Chol HaMoed. Okay, and those are our 3 Mishnahs for the day.
I would imagine that it's different from today, because today with people working and all kind of things, it's kind of hard to keep some of these things. But you don't write, I would think.
I mean, it's people can be pretty makpid on Chol HaMoed. I mean, you generally find a heter for writing things when you need to write it. If it's but again, writing with a shinoi is the generally accepted thing. If you need to write something that's not the davar mitzvah, like anything that's a davar mitzvah, like if you're sitting in a shir on Chol HaMoed and you want to take notes, you don't need a shinoi. That's davar mitzvah.
They don't talk about money. They don't talk about spending money, I guess, because you can spend money for the festival. You want to enjoy it.
Also nefesh.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, we have Megillah, and which is another week or so.
Yeah, Daled base.
Daled base. On Rosh Chodesh on Chol HaMoed, 4 people read the Torah. We may not decrease them nor add to them, and we do not conclude the reading with a section from the Nevi'im. The one who commences and the one who concludes the reading of the Torah respectively recites the blessings said before it and after it. This is the general rule. On any day on which there is a musaf, but which is not a festival, 4 people read from the Torah. On festivals, 5 people read on Yom Kippur, 6 people read on Shabbos, and 7 people read. We may not decrease them, nor we may not increase them. And we conclude the reading with a section from the Nevi'im. Did we do this yesterday, didn't we?
Oh yeah. Sorry, carry. No, that's correct. That's correct. Sorry, I was following in the wrong place. But carry on.
The one who commences and the one who concludes the reading of the Torah, respectively, recite the blessings said before it and after it. We may not divide the Shema, nor go before the ark, nor may the Kohanim lift their hands to recite the priestly blessing, nor do we read publicly from the Torah, nor do we conclude with a section from the Nevi'im, nor do we make standing and sitting tributes at a funeral, nor do we say the mourner's blessing, nor the consolation to the mourners, nor are the wedding blessings recited, nor is God's name mentioned in the invitation to the grace after meals. In the presence of fewer than 10 men and the appraisal of lands, 9 men and a Kohen are required, and the appraisal of a human is the same. So this is saying that at this time we wouldn't say Kaddish.
Wouldn't say Kaddish without a minion.
Without a minion. All right, so, right. Okay. All right. One who reads the Torah may not read fewer than 3 verses. He may not read more than 1 verse at a time for the translator, and in the section for the Nevi'im, he may not read more than 3 verses at a time. If the 3 verses are 3 paragraphs, we read them one by one. One is permitted to skip in the reading of the prophets, but one may not skip in the reading of the Torah. How much is one permitted to skip? No more than what would cause the translator to pause.
Okay.
And what are we going to be doing after Megillah?
Moed Katan.
Moed Katan. That's what I thought. Okay.
Okay, Rosh Hashanah Aleph Dalet.
For 2 months, the witnesses may decrease the Sabbath. For Nisan and for Tishrei,
Desecrate.
for on them the messages go forth. I'm sorry?
You meant desecrate. You said decrease.
All right. For 2 months, the witnesses may desecrate the Sabbath for Nisan and for Tishrei. For on them the messengers go forth to Syria, and on them they fix the holy days. And when the temple was in existence, they desecrated even for all of them because of the determination of the time of the sacrifice. Whether the new moon, was clearly visible or whether it was not clearly visible. Not clearly visible, they could desecrate the Sabbath because of it. Rabbi Yossi says if it was clearly visible, they could not desecrate the Sabbath because of it. It happened that more than 40 pairs of witnesses passed on their way to Beis Din, and Rabbi Akiva detained them in Lod. Rabbi Gamliel sent him the following message: if you detain the public, you are placing a stumbling block in their path for the future. Okay. Here. And we are in Pesachim.
Yes. Ooh, have I just lost my connection? Darn.
The grass palms all day on the 4th. I'm sorry, what did I say?
Okay, so no, I just lost my internet for a bit.
Okay. Grass palms all day on the 14th of Nisan. They wrap the Shema and they reap and stack prior to the Omer, but they have not they did not agree with him. He dragged the bones of father on a bier of ropes, and they agreed with him. He crushed the brazen serpent, and they agreed with him. And he hid the book of remedies, and they agreed with him. Concerning 3, they did not agree with him. He cut the doors of the temple and sent them to the king of Assyria. But he did not agree with that. And I agree with him. Hey.
So my internet cut out for a bit there. Did you read Hey Aleph?
Yes, I did. Do you want me to go back?
Let me just take a look at it quickly. Okay, great, thank you. All right, Kilayim Dalet Dalet.
A partition of reeds, if there is less than 3 tefachim between them, between one reed and another, through which a kid can enter, it is regarded as a partition. And a branch in a fence is up to 10 amet is regarded as an entrance. If it exceeds this, it is forbidden opposite the breach. If there are many breaches, if that which stands exceeds the breach, it is permitted. But if the breach exceeds that which stands, it is forbidden opposite the breach. If one plants a row of fine vines, Rabbi Shammai says it is a vineyard, but Beis Hillel says it is not a vineyard unless there are 2 rows. Therefore, if one sows within 4 cubits of a vineyard, Beis Shammai says it renders forbidden 1 row, and Beis Hillel says it renders forbidden 2 rows. If one plants 2 opposite 2 and one projects like a tail, it is a vineyard. 2 opposite 2 and 1 between, or 2 opposite 2 and 1 in the middle, this is not a vineyard, unless 2 are opposite 2 and 1 projects like a tail.
Right. Kalim.
Okay, 1 second. Kalim. Okay, we have test Zion base. Wooden baskets become susceptible to tumah from when the craftsman secures their rims and trims them. But those made of strips of palm trees, even though he did not trim them from the inside, are tamei, since they are thus kept. A reed basket becomes susceptible to tumah when he secures its rim and trims it and finishes fastening its hanging cord. A case for holding the flask and a case for holding cups, even though they did not trim them from the inside, they're tamei, since they are thus kept. Small sifters and women's baskets are susceptible to tumah from when the craftsman secures their rims and trims them. Large baskets and large bins are susceptible from when he makes 2 coils around their circumference. The screen of a sifter, a sieve, and the pan of a balance are susceptible to tumah from when he makes 1 coil around the circumference. And a basket is susceptible from when he attaches 2 rings around its circumference, and the strap basket from when he attaches 1 ring to it. At what point do leather utensils become susceptible to contracting tumah? A shepherd's pouch from when the craftsman edges it and trims it and inserts it in drawstrings. Rabbi Yehuda says from when he attaches its loops. The leather tanner's apron from when he edges it and trims it and attaches its sashes. And Rabbi Yehuda says from when he attaches its rings. A leather bed spread from when he edges it and trims it. Rabbi Yehuda says from when he attaches its strings. A pillow and a mattress of leather are susceptible from when he fully stitches them and trims them. Rabbi Yehuda says from when he sews them and leaves over in them a space smaller than 5 handbreadths.
And finally, Sanhedrin.
And Sanhedrin. Vavkin. When one has 4 amas between the stoning place and they remove his clothing. They cover a man in front and a woman both front and back. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. But the Katan say a man is stoned unclothed, but a woman is not stoned unclothed. The stoning place was elevated twice the height of a man. One of the witnesses shoves him from his hips, and he falls onto his chest, and he is turned onto his hips. If he dies from this, it is sufficient. If not, the second witness takes a stone and throws it upon his chest. When he dies from this, it is sufficient. If not, his stoning is by all of Israel, as it is stated. The hand of the witnesses shall be upon him first to put him to death, and the hand of the entire nation afterwards. All those who are stoned are hanged. These are the words of as can come and say, no one is hanged except for the blasphemer and the idolater. A man is hanged facing the people and a woman facing the gibbet. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. But the come and say a man is hanged, but a woman is not hanged. Said Rabbi Eliezer to them, did not Shimon ben Shatak hang women in Ashkelon? They said to him, he hanged 80 women, and one may not try even 2 in a day. How do they hang him? They sink a post into the ground with a beam protruding from it. He places 2 hands upon one upon the other, and hangs him. Rabbi Yoshi says the post is leaned against the wall, and he hangs him in the way that butchers do. They release him immediately. If he is left overnight, this constitutes a transgression of a negative commandment as it is stated. And you shall not leave his body hanging overnight, for you shall bury him on that day. For one who is hanged is like a curse to Hashem. That is to say, why was this person hanged? Because he blasphemed Hashem, and the name of Hashem is profaned. Okay. Said Reb Meir, at a time when a person suffers, what expression does the Shekinah use? So to speak, I am burdened by my head. I am burdened by my arm. If the omnipresent is paying so for the blood of the wicked which is spilled, how much more for the blood of the righteous? Not only this, but anyone who leaves his deceased relative overnight transgresses a negative commandment. If he left him overnight for sake of his honor in order to bring him a casket or shrouds, it does not transgress. They do not bury him in the ancestral plot. Rather, there were two cemeteries set aside for the court, one of those who were strangled and one for those who were stoned or burned.
Yeah.
Okay. I have an interesting story for you. You want to shut off the